This week's 2 by Tuesday is focused on this question: how can you create the best employee onboarding experience? What 2 elements should you focus on? But before we dive in, there is a perception that the onboarding experience has to be world-class, amazing for every company in the world. I don't think that's the case, though. I believe that the onboarding experience should actually reflect what's going on with the company. Let me give you an example of that. Back in 2008, I started a job with a company called Wicked Campers. I was very excited, and their office was in a place called Fortitude Valley in Brisbane. So to prepare myself for the new job, I actually rented an awesome apartment, which is only about a 100-meter walk from the office that I was told I was working in. On the weekend, prior to starting my job on the Monday, I was told the office had actually moved. So I'd have to drive another 15 minutes to get there, which was kind of annoying. What this did was it basically told me that this company is going to be a little bit dysfunctional. There's going to be some unpredictability. And that one example actually was true. It was extrapolated across the business. So I think about what intention, what expectations do you want to set? If you create an excellent onboarding process, how are you following that up in terms of the maintenance when people actually get in and get involved? Are you setting them up for the right expectations? So keep that in mind when we look at these 2 elements. The 2 elements that I'm mapping today, one down the bottom is official, and I'll explain more about this in a moment. And on the y-axis, we have unofficial. Let's start with the x-axis, official. And I think this is where a lot of companies go when they think about onboarding. What they think about are, what are the key documents people need to know about? We need to tell them about the strategy, about the mission, about the values of this business. That's really critical. We also need to tell them how to access things and show them how to do that. What are the reporting lines? Where do you see it? How do you access this material? Can you print something? All of this stuff is part of official. So if you do this well, someone has a good grasp of the content elements related to their job and the business. So if you're doing a good job of this, I would say, and it doesn't mean comprehensive, doesn't mean a lot, but it's right for role, right? So you're doing a comprehensive job. They know they have the right exact information, or they know exactly where they need to go to find it. What's the opposite of comprehensive? It's uncomprehensive. And you're thinking, okay, where do I go to find things? What am I actually doing here? What is this company all about? What are the systems I need to use? And you might be scratching your head a little bit. On the y-axis is unofficial. And this is all the stuff that just can't be captured in anything official, right? So this is, do I feel like I belong here? A good book on that is Belonging by Owen Eastwood. Do I feel like this is a place where I can bring my strengths? Do I feel like I'll get along with the people here? Do I buy into the mission, everything else? Do I know where like the best coffee is? Do I feel comfortable here? And because it is decentralized, it's hard to have that sort of control. And you think about your experience. If you're buddied up with one person versus someone else, your experience in that moment of onboarding can be very different. Are they telling you the right things? Are they telling you things that will get you excited about the role, or telling you things that will maybe distract from your experience being an employee there? And often we find in businesses that a lot of the onboarding focus is on the official side that we can control. So how can you create more of that process? Anyway, what does this mean when we start mapping it out? What does it mean for your people? So at the top right, and I'll explain in more detail, best move ever. That's how someone's thinking if the unofficial's done well and they've got comprehensive information. However, if they're being completely devoid of information, whether it's unofficial or official, they'll be looking at, first of all, thinking worst move ever, but also glancing at the job board for opportunities. On the top left, where you've got a beautiful, unofficial greeting where you feel like, oh, wow, I do feel a sense of belonging and these people are great. And I love what the business is and the stories I'm hearing are wonderful. Yet I'm not really given the tools to succeed here. I'm getting really frustrated because I have no idea where to go on the internet to find this. That can be super frustrating. So you feel good, but it's also, I would say you might be feeling a bit cagey as well. It's kind of like one of the things I spoke before, like there's sizzle, but there's no steak, there's no substance. On the bottom right here, I see a lot of great companies fall into this trap. Like I said before, is like you got a comprehensive official greeting where you got these beautiful videos. You might be doing like a week of online modules. Oh my gosh, that's a detractor for me. But you might not have any sort of human connection, right? So you're basically just sitting on there watching these videos, jumping on calls, but no one's asking you questions. There's no dialogue, and you're thinking, I just feel like a number. And that's what this one is. I feel like a number. I feel like a resource. I don't feel like a human or a member of a team. All right. So top right, best move ever. What's actually happening in this? Well, your comprehensive docs are great, but also think about this. Before you've even started, you've probably had a phone call from someone in your team, if not your manager, saying, hey, welcome. Like, what's your favorite coffee? That type of dialogue. We're really excited to have you here. Just those little conversations will really help. Plus, maybe in the first week, they've scheduled calls with each individual that you need to talk to. My former manager, Daryl, he just like took me to all these different offices in my first week working for Tees Mining, and we just had conversations, and it was wonderful. And he came along with me, so I didn't feel like I was in the deep end having to build relationships. That was just amazing. And you've also got the comprehensive tools to back you up. You know where you need to go to find things. Bottom right, like I said before, you're probably sitting through all these online modules, but you're having no human connection or dialogue. I think dialogue is key. You're having a two-way conversation. And often that is lacking, or it's not instigated, or you have to instigate it, which kind of makes you feel a little bit awkward, like you're new and you got to do this. So you might feel like a number. So in that situation, if you feel like your onboarding process is like that, I would suggest, what are some ways that you can encourage managers, line leaders, or people within the business to reach out to new employees as well? If you're looking at creating a sense of connection, I would suggest even things like an internal podcast where you're able to share stories, but encourage maybe community sharing or dialogue through that as well. Use community forums, use asynchronous communication as well to help people like feel like they've got an outlet or a place where they can go to ask questions, to get up to speed with the culture, or all the set of behaviors that are expected at the business. Bottom left is where there's no information about what someone needs to do when they start, and they're not really feeling like they belong. Worst move ever. I think what I would suggest you do is actually start at a one-to-one level before even thinking of scaling. So think, okay, what does someone actually need to know here? What's the process? Let's map that out and try and get the hygiene factors correct before you even think about X factor moves. But start that at a one-to-one level. So as in, if you've got a new employee starting in 2 weeks, let's just manually begin. What's the process of getting this person on board? And how will we create that? Try to create for one person, then think about scaling. Top left is there's a feel-good experience, but I feel a bit cagey because I don't feel like there's any sort of official process here. It's a bit loose. Kind of like that example I gave of Wicked Campers. I mean, the environment and the people were fantastic. I had phone calls and all of that, but then they switched offices on me, which was like, oh my gosh, I wish someone had told me that earlier. Same thing I witnessed at one specific company a while ago was I remember seeing a new starter actually walk to reception and they said who they were. And the receptionist didn't know who they were or what they were doing there. And like, oh, look, I'm a new starter today. So there'd been in terms of the process, there'd been like a missing link where someone wasn't notified. At the same time, that person belonged to like a really wonderful team with a great leader. They just missed that step, right? And follow through is quite important here. So what I'd suggest in that situation is bringing in like a bit of a checklist, which has like 3 days before, 30 days before. You can automate a lot of this, right, through systems, and look at systemizing that approach to make it more comprehensive and make sure that you're following through. This matrix could be expanded upon for like a whole series of podcast episodes talking about strategies for each one. But I'd like to ask you, have you been in this experience where, you feel like you've been in one of the quadrants, and what did that mean for you in terms of your retention at the business? Were you happy with either having great expectations set or the real expectations set? Or, I mean, I've been in situations where the onboarding experience was terrible and I was looking for a job immediately, but I managed to hang on a bit longer. That first impression is so important though. Thanks for listening.